And we are honored to have on the program today Jay Leno. And Jay, welcome to Auto Smarts for You.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
What are you up to?
You tell a few jokes. You're trying to make a living. That's about it. Car-wise, what am I restoring? A 61 Corvair Rampside right now.
Ooh, I like that.
I like those. Yeah, I like, this. I mean, I got some fancy cars, but there's a lot of other cars that are fun to have, just cars that were cool when I was a kid,
Oh, yeah. Hey, you know what? Tell me about your Buick. I read an article that I have a 57 Chevy Pro Street that I might say I just put on your website. I'm pretty proud to say. And I love your old Buick that you put the 502 in. Is that where you put a crate motor in it? Or
572.
Oh, you stepped up to the big dog.
Right.
Wow. I mean, is that I believe the article read that was your car back in your comedy days? You actually drove it around?
Well, I bought that car when I came to California in '72. I got it out of a penny saver. It cost me $350, and I drove it for years and years. And then I met my wife, and we got married, and I parked it over in my mother-in-law's driveway, and I'd go over there every, once or twice a month, and I'd be sitting there, well, okay, and then the registration ran out, and then newer, younger, prettier cars came along. You know how Hollywood is.
Oh, yeah.
And then it sat there for like 16 years.
Okay.
And then one day, my mother-in-law said, somebody put a note on the car, and the note said, somebody obviously doesn't want this car. I'd love to buy it. And I went, someone doesn't want it. So horrible. So we said, well, but we got to fix it. So we took it back to the garage, and then we figured, let's do it upright. And I always like the stock GM styling. I'm not a chop and channel guy. I always like stock look.
Right.
And so we put the C5 Corvette suspension front and rear, put the 572 big block in it. Just upgraded Corvette disc brakes. But we wanted to keep it looking totally stock. We even spun our own hubcaps, made our own hubcaps in a 17-inch wheel so we could fit the big brakes in it. And it's a wonderful car. I mean, I really enjoy it. It looks like, it's so funny when you see so many of those cars in the 50s now, you go, God, these things are so ugly. How could anybody buy them? Because they look like dinosaurs. They're sitting down on the springs, and the chrome is all rotted off, and they just, dented and smashed. And then you see them the way they look back in the day, and you go, oh, I get it now,
Joined on the program by the one, the only Jay Leno. And Jay, for the folks that don't know, how many different cars and motorcycles do you own? Do you know?
Oh, man, you sound like my wife.
She's
cute.
Well,
there's about 104 cars and about 80 bikes. It gets a little stupid.
Wow.
Look, I see most guys in Hollywood have like one car and like 30 girlfriends, and they're broke. I have like 100 cars and one girl, and I got plenty of dough. So I'm actually, and plus, when you come home reeking of transmission fluid, your wife knows where you've been.
Yes, there's no hiding that.
That's what I tell these guys.
Why the fascination with cars and motorcycles, Jay?
Oh, anything that rolls and explodes and makes noise, I always liked. I worked at a Ford dealership in high school, and I worked at a Mercedes dealership in college, and
wow,
I just liked it. It was just a fun thing to be around. When you work with your hands and you fix things, you appreciate how easy it is to make money in show business.
Right.
When you work with your hands, you do get an appreciation of how much things cost, and you tend to take care of them a little bit. And, like when I was a kid, when we were kids, I don't know if kids in high school still do it so much now, but, we loved our cars. We didn't go smashing them up. We didn't have accidents because, we spent all week working on it, and just to have it run for an hour and a half, oh, my God, it's still running. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize this.
Right.
So I always think that when you put some blood and sweat into something, you have a little bit of higher appreciation for it.
Jay, I have to say this. Our passion is a lot alike, except for you're a heck of a lot more popular than I am. I'm just at the local level. But, I go out and I get upset when I see people abusing classic cars, and it drives me nuts when they, you hear the old stories. The old timers love to tell me how they used a 57 Chevy hardtop in a demolition derby, and I want to throw up. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny though. But when I was a kid, we would go to demolition derbies, and you'd see Chrysler cars from the 50s and early 60s, and you go, oh, it's okay to smash those up.
Yeah, right.
Just don't smash up that 38 Buick or that 32 Ford.
Right.
And now I go, look. So, in the same way, I watch people have complete disregard and disgust for GM cars in the 70s and early 80s. Mm-hmm. In a few years from now, those will be collectible to somebody,
You know what? Let me ask you this. When you see, there's an old timer in my hometown has a 55 Chevy, and I'm only 40 now, but when I was 16 years old, I tried to buy the car. Well, the car is now sunk in the mud a foot deeper. And nowadays I'd get arrested, but it just does that drive you insane when you know there's a nice classic and it's not stored properly, and a lot of people just won't sell them. And what does that do to you? Does that fire you up like it does me?
Well, I don't know if it bothers you so much as people always have their own. When I meet old guys like this all the time, and they go, I'm going to get around to fixing it, and you look at them, and they're 70.
Right.
And they're not going to get around it. But you know something? If it gives them some comfort and it's what they like, it's what they like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, it's like, to me, I go home and I take my suit and I throw it over the chair.
Right.
And I'm sure the guy who does these custom-made suits for the Tonight Show pulls his hair out that I don't have it on a cedar hanger in a cedar closet hanging up because I don't really care about clothes. It's not a big deal to me.
Right.
So it's all what you like.
Right.
Because look at it this way. If everybody loved classic cars and cared about them, you know how expensive they'd be? You wouldn't get any deals. That's the idea. You find the car sitting in a barn in a garage somewhere that somebody doesn't care about.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. Like when I bought my 66 Olds Tornado for $800, and we did it up and converted to rear-wheel drive, and we got on all the shows and on the website and rides, and Hot Rod Magazine named it Hot Rod of the Year.
Yes, I read that.
And then suddenly I saw Oldsmobile Tornadoes going for $4,500. And I got angry letters from guys going, hey, we love these cars, and thanks to you, the price is going up, and they're all mad at me. And I go, well, you can be mad at me, or you can say, hey, I'm saving a car from the junkyard, because suddenly somebody sees the intrinsic value in this, It's only worth something if two people want it,
Right.
If you could keep just one vehicle, Jay, which vehicle would you keep?
No, boy, it's just... Well, I mean, in terms of having the ultimate, I've got a Duesenberg SJ supercharged Murphy disappearing top convertible, which was probably the high-performance car, if not of the 20th century, at least of the first half of the 20th century.
Right.
I mean, it went 130 miles an hour in 1932.
Unheard of.
320 horsepower. And to this day, you can drive it as a normal car, and it'll go 70, 80 on the freeway. She'll do 100 no problem. So that's pretty good. That's right up there.
Let me ask you this: when you have to stick out like a thorn when you're going down a freeway in a car like that. Being Jay Leno has to be. People probably always want your autograph and wear you out. But when you're on that classic car, when I'm in my classics driving down the road, people.
Something I find you're actually. So I don't know if necessarily safer, but when you're driving one of these jelly bean cars that all look the same and they're, in that shade of gray and white that's popular, they all sort of blend in.
Right.
When you pass somebody in some chrome-laden monster they go, ah! They wake up. They actually see you. They don't drift into your lane.
That's a good point.
In some ways, it's actually good because you're not blending into traffic. You're actually standing out, and people go, "Oh, geez, look at that!" So.
Right.
You've got to check out his website, too, jaylenosgarage.com. All his vehicles he's talked about and described them in detail. That took probably a year just to do that website. The information on there is incredible. And the other thing I like about Jay, too, is he gives back, too. Jay, you've donated and put up for auction so many different vehicles to help those from the September 11th attacks, the Indian Ocean earthquake and Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
Why do you do all that?
If you can afford to do it, you do it. My heart goes out to people who can't afford to do this kind of stuff and still do it. If you're making good money and you can afford to do it, well, that's okay. But the guy that's making a couple $100 a week and he gives $50, percentage-wise, he's doing a lot more than I am. So I gotta defer to that.
You're one of the few talk show guys that, man, I just love how you handle some of your guests, and it makes my job a lot easier. So
well, thanks. We got Senator John McCain on tonight.
I know. I saw that. I can't wait to get a TiVo in case I fall asleep tonight.
Check it out. Oh, you'll fall asleep. That happens all the time.
All right.
Well, Jay, thank you. I know you have to get ready for the show.
Thanks a lot. Call me anytime.
Where will we see you in June of next year? What are you going to be up to?
I'll come up with a job somewhere.
All right.
Thanks,
Jay,
guys.
thanks. Take care.
Take care.